Hello, and welcome to our lesson on grouping data. Today, we'll explore techniques that will allow us to identify and highlight specific features in data, helping us draw meaningful conclusions and present our findings more effectively. Firstly, we will learn what grouped data is and when it is appropriate to use it. We will discover how to present our findings and draw meaningful conclusions from tabulated grouped data. We will also consider the drawbacks of grouping data and how this affects the validity of the conclusions we draw. Then, we will learn how to construct a table of grouped data, learning the key features of class intervals to best present data. Finally, we will explore ungrouped data and when it is best to use this instead. We will discover how to identify features from the data and compare the use of grouped and ungrouped data. So far in our statistics module, we've covered several fundamental concepts such as populations and samples, discrete and continuous data, and primary and secondary data. With this solid foundation in place, we are now prepared to delve into data manipulation techniques. These techniques are critical for focusing on specific aspects of data, making it easier to interpret. By learning these new methods, you'll be able to communicate your data more clearly and make more informed decisions based on the insights you extract. One effective data manipulation method is by using grouped data. Grouped data involves organizing raw data into intervals or categories. This is particularly useful when dealing with large sets of continuous data. By grouping data, we can summarize and highlight important features without getting lost in the details. For example, imagine we're recording the times that trains leave a station between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Instead of noting the exact minute each train departs, we group the times into 10-minute intervals. The class interval tells us the time range that a given number of trains leave the station. This way, we can easily see which parts of the hour are busiest by looking at the number of trains, which tells us the frequency. The table shows the grouped train departure times. By grouping the data, we make it immediately clear that the busiest time interval is 8 o'clock to 8:10. Let's discuss more about how to construct our intervals for continuous data. We want to make sure the intervals have the following features. First, the intervals should cover the entire range of data. Second, all intervals should be of the same width for consistency. For example, in the table on the right, all of the intervals are 10 minutes. Third, intervals should be non-overlapping, so each data value should belong to only one interval. It is a convention that if the interval is not expressed as an inequality, then we always take the lower bound of an interval to be a strict inequality and the upper bound to be an inclusive inequality. For example, the interval 8 o'clock to 8:10 means we take any times that satisfy the inequality. Here t is more than 8 but less than or equal to 8:10. This ensures our intervals are non-overlapping. So what would we do if, in the above example, a train had left the station at 8:10? We should record it in the first interval, 8 o'clock to 8:10. Note that it does not always make sense to group data. For example, when dealing with discrete data points, where each point is distinct and separate. Ungrouped data is typically used in such cases. Unlike grouped data, ungrouped data retains the exact value of each observation, which is helpful when each distinct value is important to our analysis. For example, let's consider the number of goals scored in football matches over a season. Recording each match's exact number of goals helps us determine the frequency of specific outcomes clearly. Suppose we collect the following data over a season. From this table, we can immediately see that matches with one goal are the most common, with a frequency of 9 matches. Grouping data in this scenario, such as into intervals of 0 to 2 goals, would obscure these specific insights. To better understand when to use grouped or ungrouped data, it's essential to differentiate between the types of data we might encounter, including whether it is continuous or discrete. In today's lesson, we explored techniques for manipulating data to make it easier to understand, focusing on grouped and ungrouped data. We began by examining grouped data, which involves organizing raw data into intervals or categories. It is particularly useful for summarizing large sets of continuous data. We learned how to tabulate group data, discovering the key features that our class intervals should have. Next, we discussed ungrouped data, where each data point is distinct and separate. By recording each exact value, we can clearly see the frequency of specific outcomes. This approach is ideal for discrete data points. By learning to manipulate data through grouping or leaving it ungrouped, we enhance our ability to draw meaningful insights and communicate findings effectively. This lesson equips you with the tools to approach any dataset strategically, ensuring clarity and relevance in your presentations.